right, so here we go. We have here the legend, the rock star, the guitar shred, one of the kings of guitar shred for me, Mr. Bruce Bouillet. How are you, man?
Very good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for accepting the invitation here in Shred Music TV, and also for the podcast that we're doing, talking to legends like you, man. So first of all, as we talked a little bit earlier, big fan of you. I grew up listening to Razor X big time with a mixtape, with a Walkman. I didn't have YouTube back then. I'm 40. So we have a Walkman with a mixtape of you, and for me, to be honest, was like the next step. I started listening Metallica and Iron Maiden, so you have those, like duets, and was crazy. But then when I listened to Razor X the first time, was like them were in steroids, man. It was just like, it was like, oh my gosh, like what the heck's going on? So I just want to ask you, what's going on with you right now? What is your project right now? What are you doing right now?
Well, I keep pretty busy. I still produce and engineer a lot in studios. I live here in Las Vegas, and so I actually work with Mike Varney still because he lives here in Las Vegas. So I'll go into the studio with him and engineer some projects that he's working on. I think most recently was the Jason Walker album that he was producing. But I also do a lot of studio work for other people's albums, so I get a lot of calls to go, hey, will you do a solo on my album? And it's like, of course, I would love to. And so a lot of that still, and I still keep pretty active writing over here, even though I haven't really put out any albums in quite a while. I think it's been probably 12 years. And that's mainly just because the way the whole industry is sort of structured right now, music is semi-free almost, basically, and you have to tour it really to it's almost like your calling card for coming on tour, and touring is such a difficult thing. I tried to tour my last solo album, and the credit card came out somewhere around halfway across the U.S. My wife was on the phone. What are you doing? But still, like, really active in I still play a bunch every day, and I teach pretty heavy. I have a Patreon that which I really like. It keeps me sort of actively making new curriculum and making new material, and who knows, there's still plenty of time to make some albums, and there might come to that point where I call my old buddy Paul and see what he's doing at some point, because I know he's done with Mr. Big, so who knows what could happen.
So do you have like a website or something like that to contact you, so people want to record with you?
Yeah, you can get me on Instagram is probably the easiest way. Direct message me there, or TikTok, or any of the social medias. I'm on everything: Facebook, Instagram. Awesome. And I do check my direct messages all the time. So,
okay, great. So you guys know now, if you want to work with Bruce, you guys can just shoot a message. I will shoot a message for sure, man.
Or any bands out there that needs a guitar player, hit me up.
There you go. You have one of the best right here, man. But that's great that you're in all that, man, like in social media, because I think that you, more than me, actually, because I kind of was a teenager when, well, MySpace was like the first thing, to be honest, to put stuff out, was MySpace and Hotmail Messenger. We used to have Hotmail Messenger. That was like the first thing, and then evolved to all these Facebook, YouTube. What we didn't know that YouTube, like, I regret not putting videos back then. I'm like, wow. Right. Yeah, it was just what I was thinking, and we didn't know. And I bet for you, because I guess I was in that era when they said labels got broke. Labels were like, oh, we don't put more money into you guys. But you were not in that era. You were in the era that labels were like big money, big bucks, and like, okay, we have the money, man, and we have the money to support you. And the bands were usually broke, and they're like, oh, we have a label deal. That's the goal.
Yeah, I definitely come from the era I caught sort of the end of the old school music business. And so like with the Shrapnel record deal was my first really big record deal. And to me, I was completely like, over the moon, because, oh my God, I'm signing to this great guitar label. That was my main goal, was to be a great guitar player. And it was, you could, back then, you didn't have to be a number one artist to have a career. You could be down a few tiers, not even that big of a band, and still have enough income from music and from record sales and from playing shows that it was a lot easier. And even though the goal was to get signed to a bigger label because they were the bank and they had the money and they could put you into a bigger studio with a bigger producer and put you on the road and cover your expenses and advertise, that model slowly started to evaporate once the internet came around. And then, obviously the LimeWire showed up, and that started making music downloadable for free. And really, being in Los Angeles, I had so many friends in the music industry, and you could just see overnight it absolutely emptied out. Whole buildings were just like empty all of a sudden because they couldn't sustain these massive payrolls, and the number one product, which was the music, was now free almost. Basically, you could go on, if you were savvy enough, you could go on the internet and find it and download it. So it's different times. As much as now I think there's that opportunity where you could be in your bedroom with a little laptop and make some music, and the whole world will know about it via the internet, which used to be a pretty difficult task. You had to have magazines back in the day and radio play. Now with the internet, you can get right into everybody's, right in front of them overnight. And so there is a trade-off. I can't say that I dislike the new business model of the music industry. It certainly gives more chances to more people, and it gives those chances to people anywhere. You could be in the most remote place on earth with your laptop and make a song and put it on the internet, and the whole internet can hear it overnight. So that is real appealing. But I do feel for artists out there, because the touring thing is difficult, and you raise ticket prices, and people think you're being greedy, but you're not. You're just trying to get the show across the country without losing money, really. And I think, that's why you see a lot of those platinum packages and stuff where you get to go meet the band and you may get a shirt and get to watch sound check. Those things are really what's kind of keeping the show rolling, because that brings in a lot of the extra money. So I'm a big believer in supporting that and in general, but we're all still making music and we're all still here, so it's all good.
Yeah, more you were in that era of like touring LA, full blast, slam, full, like, you were seeing all these bands all of a sudden from the club, from an arena, because they got huge because the label or the touring. And right now, I think that the people that really, really love it go to the shows now. I think everyone is too much in the streaming, and it's different.
It is.
If
you look at videos, if you watch videos from maybe the 90s, and it's pre-cell phone, and people are still there just in the moment to see a show. It's not with your phone recording the show the whole time, and look at me, I'm at this concert, blah, blah, blah. You were just there in the moment, and that was probably one of the coolest things about the time I landed in LA, probably 1985. And LA was just on fire as far as like the music scene. There was just tons of people, everybody going to LA. And so when you would go out on a Friday night to like Sunset Strip, where you had Gazzari's and the Roxy and the Whiskey and Troubadour and all that stuff in that area, there were thousands of people there. Because there was, the whole like social media didn't exist. So really you had to kind of go there in person if you wanted to be around it. And it was such a different time. The mystique was still there. You know, you didn't know what you were going to get when you went to a show because there was nothing to source it from. There were no videos. There were no cell phones showing it. It was like you go there and you don't know who's going to be there. And it was just a whole different kind of experience. It was cool. I'm glad I got to experience it.
I bet the whole package, because you went also to GIT. You got the whole.
Oh yeah.
The whole thing. And why and when do you like left LA? Like,
well, I got to LA in '85, and I honestly, the craziest thing is I met Paul Gilbert the first day I landed in LA.
Oh,
just
wow.
by luck. I mean, I walked into MI and I was going to register because I was getting ready to start, and he was finishing his term at MI, so he was performing to get performance credits. So I remember walking in the performance hall, and here's Paul Gilbert on stage playing the Street Lethal album with the whole band. And I remember sitting there looking, and I was leaning against the wall, and I hit the guy next to me, and he's like, "How old is this dude up there?" And he goes, 17. And I'm like, oh no. I had this envision in my mind that everybody was going to be better than any guitar player I've ever seen, you know, and all like really young. And the first guy I see is Paul Gilbert. It's true. Everybody's great in LA. But, you know, I soon realized he was like one of the special dudes at the school. And I went up to him immediately after he finished. Everybody else left. It was like they had already been around him the whole year at school. So when he finished, everybody went to class, and I went up to him and talked to him and was like, wow, I was so impressed. And so you had to fill out like a questionnaire on who you wanted for your private instructor. And I remember I made it so obvious. Really tall guy, plays super fast staccato notes, sweep picks, you know. And sure enough, I got Paul as my once a week, you know, counselor. And that really was my first day in LA, of all things. It was almost sort of like it was meant to happen. And but anyway, it was a great time. You know, I ended up getting into Racer X. That was around the 85, 86, probably 86.
I was reading about that on doing like Wikipedia, read more about you, that I read about you actually before, but just some people change information because it's like a true or false in Wikipedia, but it says almost the same that you just said. Yeah, it says that, and that you saw it, and also it says that you start guitar playing because you saw Judas Priest and Kiss. I think Judas Priest was opening for Kiss, and you were like, I want to be that, you know, and your parents support you, and then you move because the weather, that's true, because you move more, I mean, you moved to LA because the weather was better in LA than going to Chicago or New York that is colder, or that's not true.
Yeah, it was more, honestly, my mom and dad sort of gave me that talk, like, what are you going to do with your life, you know, at 18, and it was like, well, I remember I was looking through Guitar Player magazine, and I saw the ad for GIT, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And I asked them, it's like, well, what if I go to school in Hollywood to this guitar school? It's only 1 year. You know, let me just go out there and try it for a year. And in my head, it wasn't so much that, I mean, I was excited to learn. I really wanted to learn, but I was already starting to get semi kind of good. Like, all right, I can play. But I did want to learn. But I knew that would be the place where you could meet people. And it really was. When I got there, you had guitar players from all over the world all converging into this place, and they were all bringing their special lick from home, you know, because back in those days you didn't have the internet. So every little town had their like ace, the person that could really do it, and they had their own little special lick that, who knows where they got that influence from or whatever, but a lot of times it was just local. So most people would have never heard it. It would be like Sean Lane back in the day.
Yeah,
he was a local like hero around Memphis because that's where he was out of. And word would spread a little bit when he was touring with Jim Dandy, like, oh, there's this guy in the band that's really good. But you almost had to be around that area or know somebody from there to know about him. You know what I mean? Unless somebody got a bootleg and passed it around or something. But that's why I went to Los Angeles. Obviously the weather's great in Los Angeles. It didn't hurt.
Do you remember by chance your first lesson with Paul Gilbert? Like you saw him, he like blow your mind. You're like, oh my gosh, this is sick. First lesson. Okay. Boom.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah. Paul was always super nice. Still is.
Yeah.
He's just
and
such
he looks
nice
like a
guy.
great instructor. No, he looks like a really good instructor. Like
He is. He
no,
makes a lot of
everybody
sense.
has that. That's a special skill for me to teach like that.
Yes.
And you can tell that he has that for sure.
Yes. He picked out the things, and I think this is part of the reason why I probably got he asked me to join in was he picked out the things that like I think were my strengths. Like I had good vibrato and good bending skills. So immediately, like that's something that makes you sound professional if you have a good vibrato and a good bend and I think he had already been exposed to enough people trying to play fast all the time. It's nice to hear somebody come in and give like a good bend and with some vibrato. So he really kind of picked that out right away. Like, oh wow, you got good vibrato and your bending's really good. And he proceeded to show me the Di Meola picking lick, and that kept me busy for a few weeks. But in general, and here is another thing. This is sort of a life lesson, really, and I tell this to a lot of the people I give lessons to, and people that are asking like about being professionals. I was his last person of the day on like Friday, I think it was, or Thursday, and his apartment was by my apartment. So I would walk with him back to our apartments when we got done. So, and there's something to be said about being able to make friends and having a personality that people gel with, because in general, people want to be around people that they get along with and that they have fun with. I constantly say that I probably got the audition more from just hanging out with him a lot and becoming a friend. You know what I mean? Yeah. Than necessarily blowing his mind with my guitar skills.
Nah, but I think you have. It was both, man. You're a sick player. Like, yeah, it's not.
Well, there was.
Yeah, I like that you're a whole.
There was.
To be honest, you're pretty sick, man. You're up there, man. It's like the mortals. That's how they might. It's like humans here, and then you have these, boom, other level, and this way you are there. Paul Gilbert, Sean Lane, like all those guys are there, So yeah, you're up there, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. There was one defining moment at MI, though. He had come up with a string skipping lick, and that was still pretty early in that sort of guitar technology. It was a A minor 7 like string skipping lick, and he had showed it to me a few days before, so I was like really working on it. And he saw me walking through the hallway as he was doing an open counseling. I kind of looked in, and his rooms were always packed too. It's just like hot and humid. It was, full of people. And he goes, "Hey, come in real quick. Do that string skipping lick." So I put into the amp, and I started playing a lick, and he started harmonizing it. And all of a sudden, it was just perfect too. Like I couldn't have played it any better at that time. It was perfect. And everybody in the room was just like, oh, wow. Like it really immediately sounded like something. And it wasn't too long after that I got the call like, hey man, I'm thinking about adding another guitar player. and I'm like, oh. And then he hands me Street Lethal and says, learn this and then we'll get together. And I was like, oh, I ain't never getting this gig. But once again, he was such an understanding person. Parts I couldn't figure out, he would always be like, oh, that's hard to hear. Here's how it really goes. So he was really cool about it. But yeah, right away, the harmony thing did sound pretty good. And
in that part, I think that you guys, it was, like, let's say, of course, we have legends like Jimi Hendrix, we have Van Halen, of course, huge mainstream guys. Then you guys came with that, and that was something that also bring the guitar to another level. Even now, you hear to all those, how they call djent, and new guys playing guitar and all that.
Yeah.
How they harmonize is you guys. I mean, that's totally, well, back then you and Cacophony, those two were like the ones that brought that to like, to another level. Again, like Metallica and Iron Maiden in steroids, man, like big time, So yeah, you guys really changed that. I want to point out also like how melodic it is, because one of my favorite harmonized solos of all time is from you guys, and it's from the song, oh my gosh, Heart of a Lion. It's such a nice melodic solo, man, for both guitar players. And I wish I can see that live. Maybe one day you guys can do that again. That will be great. But yeah, one of my favorite, that's something that I want to point out, is that the melodic part too, because it's not only like the, let's say, fancy playing, as I said, or like the speed picking or all that. You guys also were very like musical, so that was great. Yeah.
I remember when we were cutting that, we didn't have a lot of the solos worked out for the album. Oh. And everything was moving pretty quick. And we were up at Catati above San Francisco with Mike Varney. That's where he cut all the Shrapnel records. And I distinctly remember the budget was pretty tight. So I think we cut and recorded and mixed the whole album in just a handful of days, like 4 days or something like that. It was really quick.
Oh, and also you record back then with the analog, right? Like how you cut those, like when you punch lines, when you messed up doing those solos and have to do it again.
Oh yeah, there was no Pro Tools. It was all tape back.
Yeah, that's
no computer. So it had to be, I mean, literally.
Perfect, I guess.
Pretty much. I mean, Scott Travis was really a gift to the band because he had such good meter. Like, I don't think a lot of those songs were cut with a click track even. Like, only ones I think that had click tracks might have been like Sunlit Nights, where it's a long ballad without drums in the beginning, so you need something to keep time. But I do remember Paul and I getting up in the mornings and working the solos out, before we would go in and do them. And it was a real interesting for me to make that album. It was so interesting. I learned a lot of things. We had one guitar rig. We just had one rig, and we brought two guitars up with us. And a lot of times Paul and I would sit pretty much right next to each other in the studio, and he would play a part and then just hand me the guitar, and I would play the on the same rig and everything. And that's where I really started to hear the difference between the hand. His hand sounded different than my hand on the same rig, and tone wise it was so obviously the playing was different, but the tone was different. And he had a brighter, more staccato-y tone, and I had a slightly fatter, a slightly looser tone, if you want to call it that.
Like a personality, It's like a soul personality thing that we guitar players understand what we hear. Some people will say like, that's the same. Like, no, it's not. It's not the same, buddy. It's not the same.
And I know there's all these arguments about tone woods and pickups and amps and all this, and that's all legit. But I can tell you for a fact, It was the same rig and same guitar and everything, and we would just hand it back and forth.
Do you remember which guitar was and which amp was? Do you remember?
Yeah, we had two older Marshall, like 70s Marshalls, and they were modded by Metaltronics, Lee Jackson. And we used a Boss stereo chorus pedal, not on, but just to split the guitar into two channels. Mm-hmm. And then we used two Marshall 412s, and we had one old Wilshire, like old one of his earlier, the pink one. It might have been the Telly Savalas guitar or something like that. It was one of the older Wilshires, and then we had a Wilshire copy made by what's his name who started Wayne Charvel. Oh. Wayne Charvel had made this for Paul. It was a purple Wilshire copy, and it was called American Guitars, and that was on the headstock. And I remember because it got knocked over and the headstock got broken half a little bit, but it still played. And those were the two guitars. And I'm not sure what was in that. I think a Super Distortion, maybe DiMarzio in the real Epiphone, and Paul would have wrapped it in like aluminum tape or something. He really like did a number with his guitars back then. He would run them in parallel instead of series. So you basically had like two single coils sitting next to each other instead of, one feeding the next one as a humbucker. And so it made it cleaner, made it harder to play, to be honest. But that was pretty much the rig. And
because something that you were talking about the tone too, and something when, again, for people that are listening to this, when I started listening to Razor X, I didn't have YouTube. It was a mixtape, again, as I said, in a Walkman. And I remember one of the live shows, and of course, yes, Paul was doing more like the staccato thing. You were doing the alternative, whatever you want to call it, picking, but you were doing more sweet picking.
Yeah.
Because I remember that hold on, that's different. I saw, I forgot the name of the videos that Paul Gilbert, it was REH or something like that. It was REH. And I remember seeing him playing a lot of picking, and it was pretty sick. But then I listened to you, it was your solo. And I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, it's like a major 7 that you do.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm not mistaken for the sound, it's a major 7 that you do. I don't remember which, I don't know if it is a C or D, whatever, but it's a major 7. And it was just like, that's different sound. Like how this is happening, because I didn't see that in Destructional. So I guess we were more closer to that kind of sweeping technique, that.
And you could tell immediately who was sitting in Frank Gambale's room at MI.
All right, yeah. I was just like, that's very different, man. I was like, this is not in Destructional, because that was another sound, So
it was kind of a different sound for metal, because you don't see major 7 back then a lot. It was almost too pretty for metal, and
was no destruction, to be honest. Like, I think back then the only two that was doing that, we're talking rock metal wise, and I'm going to jazz and stuff, because I wasn't listening to jazz, I was listening metal. I had my hair to my butt, basically, and I had my shirt, my Megadeth shirt and Metallica shirt, and I want to hear metal and shred, and all that was me. So, of course, Frank Gambale was pretty sick and all that, but you and Jason Becker, I think those two were the ones like, what's going on here? Because this is a different sound. It's different sound. It's not peaking. It's how they do that. How, it was very different. How was your approach doing that? You were more like watching Frank Gambale, like, wow, I really want to do this kind of sweeping thing.
I mean, I had heard right before I moved to LA, literally maybe a couple of days before, on the King Biscuit Flower Hour, which was this radio show that they played here. I heard the Alcatraz live, and it had Yngwie on it. And I remember the drummer came in upstairs to me and said, "You got to come down and listen to this guy on the radio, dude. You ain't going to believe it." And I heard the sweep, and I was like,
Sorry, I
what?
forgot Ingwe. I forgot to mention Ingwe, but everybody,
Yeah.
if you know about guitar, I don't have to mention him. Because,
Yeah, Ingve gets a free ride up. Everybody knows,
No.
and obviously the guy was so intense and so good, you know. And when I heard it, I just didn't know what it was. And then when I got to MI, well, obviously Gambale was there, and that was like another thing. Just when you thought Ingve was doing it all, then you're seeing Frank Gambale, and it's like, what in the world, you know?
Yeah.
I really am from a small town. I hadn't seen any of this stuff, and then Paul was doing it too. You know, he had learned how to do some of the sweeps, and once I got okay, I see what it is. It's arpeggios, and you're able to put one note on each string and then rake, you know, sort of up and down the strings. The bigger change was seeing Gambale put 3 notes in the middle on one string. So he had a way to economy pick. And I think for me, why it came so easy is I accidentally economy picked descending and alternate picked ascending. My picking was really like
all over the place, kind of thing.
it was all over the place. And that was one of the first things Paul said too when I first had my lesson with him. He goes, "Ha, you economy pick downwards and you alternate pick upwards." And I was like, oh, I was so defeated. But it lent itself, that economy picking lent itself to the sweeping. So immediately, once I saw it and I got the shapes, I could do it within a couple days. It was like, oh, man, I got my secret weapon now, because, you know, at that point, it was still kind of new technology
Yeah.
to the masses. You
Well,
know,
it was a difference between with Paul, the big time, because Paul, I think he likes more the staccato, like triads, pick, you know, like note per note kind of thing.
he's good at it too. So
Yeah, like that's like, you know, when you open like the triad and these octaves kind of thing. And you were doing the sweep picking, which I love sweep picking, man. It doesn't mean that I play perfectly, no at all, but I love the sweep picking technique a lot. It's just like so good, man. So yeah, so
Right.
that's a fun fact about you and Paul. Talking about that, some question that the guys want to know. Can you tell me how was your routine back then? Like how many hours you spend like playing guitar? And now I want to know like the versus now, you know, because it's different. When you're a teenager, you're in the GIT, and then after 40, you know, how it changed, life changed. So how is your routine back then versus now?
Well, obviously, once I got to LA, I had worked for a few years in high school, building my way up to having enough money to take a year off and play. So I was practicing a bunch and a lot of metronoming, you know, and once Paul gave me the Demiola lick, I mean, that was the mission. Like, I need to get past that hump to where I can make it really, where you get that accent part out of it. And the unfortunate side is that I did over practice. I didn't understand all the like good posture and taking breaks and stretching, and so those things ended up catching up with me. Near the end of Racer X, I developed like massive carpal tunnel. And
I was going to ask you about that too, like how was that era, you know, because you're like going skyrocket, you know,
yeah.
and then boom.
It was horrible for me because it got so bad I couldn't even close my hand on the neck.
Oh man.
And so you can imagine, here I am, I'm finally in the mix, I'm in magazines, we're starting to really get some traction, we're selling out shows everywhere. And, you know, at the end of Racer X, I actually missed a few shows where I had to fly back to, like, have it looked at a hand surgeon. And, you know, in the 80s, it really wasn't that sophisticated with hand surgery. They sort of said, well, you know, if it really works out good, in best case scenario, you could have 75%. And I'm like, what if it doesn't work out good? I'm left with Captain Hook, you know, and so I didn't do it. And it finally got to the point by, I think at 27 or well, no, probably closer to 30 almost, I stopped playing for about 8 years.
Wow.
6 to 8 years. And
that was when, like, that's one of the reasons that you didn't get back with Razor X when they did
when they got back to do the Snowball of Doom at the Whiskey and all that, I couldn't play those songs.
Sucks.
But interesting enough, while they were doing that, I had formed a new band and was just starting to play again. And I did an open tuning and used one finger to play the songs. So I didn't have to do all of this. I could just kind of do this, and it was more rhythm based. It ended up getting the biggest record deal I ever had, and we ended up touring. It was a band called Epidemic, and we ended up touring and doing pro shows. It was a lot of fun, but that actually led to finding a book called Myrotherapy. And I thought it was some really new age stuff, like, this ain't gonna work, you know what I mean? But I followed it, and really it's just pressure point, where you cut off the blood supply and hold it, and then you find the spots, and it works. And it got me to where I could start doing this again. So I bought a little mini guitar to start with, so I didn't have to do big spreads, and I started getting conditioned. And then within about a year, I was able to, about a year and a half, is when Paul called me and said, "Hey man, I heard you're playing again." And that's when he invited me to go tour Japan and do the G3.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. That's a good return, man. That's a good comeback. That's great.
Well, I was hanging on for dear life too, because, you know, I hadn't played for 8 years, and 8 prime years too, like 29 through, 30, 36 or 37. Those are prime playing years, and learning years too.
Because you're going back to play technical, difficult, precise stuff in a concert that you go, and 99.9% of people that are there play guitar and really good.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, so you go and you play these concerts and you're like, I cannot mess it up. It has to be perfect. Like psychology is very like, it's very much pressure, man, in those kind of concerts, man. It's all kind of like, you better play perfect because you have to, kind of, people expect that, so.
And I'm with Paul, and the last thing I ever wanted to do was let him down on stage, because it's a tandem. You know what I mean? If I sound bad, it ain't making him look good. And so it's like, I did take it pretty serious, and it was a bit of pressure, but, I did get through it, and it came out pretty good. I mean, obviously that's been a long time ago now. It's 2017 or 2007. So almost 20, yeah.
But you're fine. Let's say you take care of it and you can still play and it's all good.
Yeah. I can play better now than I ever have. And I can play for fairly long amounts of time without any problems. I mean, obviously, if I'm sitting in a room improvising and giving it my all, the next day I'll definitely feel like, I definitely played for about 3 hours yesterday at full steam. But, I think just having good diet and good posture, and then stretching, and when things start to hurt, give it a rest. Which was the thing I didn't do back in the Racer X days. Was I was so fanatical, I didn't think that could happen. Never occurred to me that my hand would get injured, by practicing, and it did. But anyway, I'm thankful, because I didn't think I was ever going to play again. It's why I mention it, because I do have a lot of people that have written me over the years. They knew I had that problem and came back from it. And they were going there, I know their desperation, because a lot of these people, like you say, it's their livelihood. This is how they eat, is by playing nightly shows. And I know the desperation when it starts to hurt and you can't play anymore. And so I'm glad to pass on the info. It's like, look, this worked for me. It didn't work overnight, but over about a 3-month stretch is when I started to notice, like, I can play again.
Ooh.
And I was starting to play like, hey, I can play for about 4 hours without pain. And that's when I knew it was actually working.
Man, I will write you for sure about that. I really appreciate it. You can give me the info. I have another question for you here that the guys from Shred Music TV want to know. And it was, if it is true or false, because I tried to research this. It was an album that it never, let's say you never released it with Razor X without Paul Gilbert, 12 songs. Is this true? What happened? And if this is true, what happened with that album? Like, I want to hear it, man. Like, how was it?
There's no album like that exists, but at near the end of Racer X, sort of the lead up to where it finally just disbanded, we were going into some decent studios like the Record Plant and with some producers, and we had recorded, I think, the song Poison Eyes and the song Give It to Me and Set the World on Fire. There was a handful of songs that we professionally were cutting to all right, this could be a next album. But that was the last remnants of that era that was really, and I don't even know where those recordings are. They're in the vault somewhere at the Record Plant.
Oh.
Just sitting there. I don't even know if we have any rough mixes that ever escaped, that anybody has. Maybe I don't have them. But at the time, what was interesting, right before we disbanded, we were working on a new album, and I had some riffs in. Like, one of the riffs actually ended up being a song called I Don't Care on the Scream album later on.
Right.
And it was a heavier riff, and so that was some of the stuff we were working on. Paul had a few riffs. And, once it disbanded, like I said, this riff went to the Scream, this went to Mr. Big. Things dispersed because we moved on to other projects. But no, there's not a secret album or anything like that left. That's just me. I did do a couple shows once Paul ended up.
I saw a video, actually. I saw a video, like a decent video. I don't know who recorded it. I don't remember. I remember that was you with the new guitar player. You were playing this instrumental song. I remember that I saw that. I was like, wow, that's not Paul Gilbert. That's another guy. I remember, but it was pretty good. It was
we had. We tried a few people. Nothing really worked. I mean, really, Paul was Racer X, to be honest. I mean, that was his baby, and the whole thing about it was Paul was such a prolific writer that his signature is the Racer X sound, and we had a couple shows we had to do just to fulfill contracts or whatever, and we went and did them, and obviously we all, that's how we were making our money too. But I didn't feel comfortable at all being up there by myself doing those shows. It was like I had to do it. But in the same sentence, I missed having Paul up there too, because that was really the
trend, no? Yeah. Is that kind of some people that they don't have bands and they're listening to these? Sometimes there's like a relationship, let's put it like as a girlfriend, wife, whatever, but it's that relationship that you have with someone, and it's very deep when it's a friend's band. It's different, I think, when it's like a musician they're hired and it's a project, and it's cool, and maybe the project is successful and you make money, good. But when you become friends and you split up the band, it's like a breakup. It's really like it's really like
it is. It hurt. And for us, it was even more interesting because we split up at the peak. I mean, we were selling out 1,000-seat theaters, and I remember the final show we played was the Omni up in Oakland, California, and it was a big theater, and it was sold out, and it was still back in the day where people would take bed sheets and make big banners and hang them off the balconies, and they had albums and signs made, and you know what I mean? It was still back in that early rock era, still like 88, and it was one of the greatest shows, and we knew walking out on stage that was going to be the final one too, and we all knew it, but nobody else did. And so afterwards, when we were done, I just remember being in the hallway going like, wow, that was one of the best shows we ever did, and that's the last one that this lineup is going to do. And unfortunately, that's how it did play out, because
in a multiverse, let's say you guys, Paul Gilbert left or no, and you will do a third album, a fourth album. Do you think that you stick with the, foundation, Razor X foundation, or you think that you guys will move more towards, we need to be more like Poison, we need to be more like, I don't know, Nirvana, because times were changing, so...
They were changing, yeah, and to a degree, I think maybe that was a good thing for Racer X, that it didn't have to go through that onslaught of the 80s to 90s shift, where playing solos and stuff was almost frowned on once it got into the 90s, you know what I mean? It became more stripped down, and rightfully so. It kind of almost needed that. If you were in LA and you saw what was really going on, where they were more interested in what does your front man look like? I don't care what the band sounds like. Does your front man look good? We'll write the songs and we'll hire studio musicians. You guys just take the picture and go out there. And certainly I was hearing a lot of the new stuff, and I was excited about new bands coming out. I really don't. If we would have continued on, hard to say.
All right.
I always have people say like, "Well, too bad you guys didn't like turn into a thrash metal band, because you guys had all the players to do it, And really, I always think about that. It would have been wild if we would have leaned more toward like a really heavy thrash sound, where, more into that, Exodus, Metallica, Megadeth sort of camp. We really did have a lineup that could have pulled off some pretty special numbers, but is what it is. I'm very proud of the albums I did with the band. That's for sure.
That's gonna be that's like something that's gonna be written in rock history and guitar history. That's a reference for life, man. That's not, you see all the new guys, and some people show me more new stuff. I'm like, yeah, the guys are great. Don't get me wrong. I don't have the level that they have. I don't believe that I'm better or whatever. But this was already done for these guys. These guys are like, as a Van Halen was like, like that kind of person of like, oh, he did this. Now it's like you guys. I think then, and the technical aspect of that, what I mean? It's like, when you hear that, it's just like, wow, that's Razor X, that's Bruce and Paul right there, like doing this magic thing.
I sort of see us as that second wave of metal. Like you had the real pioneers like Eddie and Randy Rhoads, and then you had like the Jakey Lees and Warren DeMartinis, and obviously you had the guys before that would be Iommi and Jimmy Page. But when you really started getting into that advanced technical stuff, the Eddie Van Halens and Randy Rhoads, and then we were sort of that second wave that came along when you started having the Jason Beckers and the Marty Friedmans and the Paul Gilberts, and obviously Yngwie was leading the charge in a big way. He was the guy that really, he was sort of one of those last big guitar heroes that was like, oh wow, he had all the stuff, it was just like an extension of him, when he played. It was so exciting to see and hear. But I was real happy the fact that I feel that we helped sort of push guitar forward a little bit, and it's preserved in history that way, where people can look back and go like, wow, 1986, these guys were throwing it down pretty hard, for being pre-internet and pre-cell phones and all that.
No, that's something that I really appreciate. Again, I'm from the era of MySpace came, and I was like, I don't know, 18, 20 or something like that, and YouTube still young, but it didn't understand what was going, So when you said that, man, it's insane. Like all you guys from the 80s, 70s, 80s, not whatever, for me, that's like, I don't know why you guys were listening in your head to create all that. I give a lot of credit to that because it's not now.
A lot of people don't understand how painful it was to learn solos off an actual record where you had to lift the needle. All my records played great until it got to the solo, and they were all scratchy on the solos because I'd always be trying to learn them off a record. I mean, that was hard. And I mean, not to date myself that bad. I mean, look, I'm 60 now, but when I started playing guitar, there was no tab either. It was like you opened up Guitar Player magazine and it was just written music. You had to learn how to read music if you wanted to understand it. It was like, well, I'm out there. That ain't going to happen. So it was by ear.
You look great to be 60, man.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Great to be 60, man. I was going to tell you what advice you will give to like guitar players now or musicians that want to, be in music and maybe make a living and on this or just practice. What advice do you have for them?
I mean, my thing is that you can still make a great career in music. I mean, that's obvious. You can do that, and no doubt about it. I listen to a lot of the new stuff out there, and I'm really impressed with all the players. I mean, obviously, there's just it's wild sometimes, like, wow, I can't believe I'm hearing this and seeing it. But I think things, honestly, if I was to be honest, I think things are going to change so radically in the next 5 years because I have been, I'm fortunate enough to know, a lot of older people that are leading up some of these groups that are involved in the AI movement. And seeing some of the work and actually some of the stuff that I've mixed in the last month were AI tracks. And it's
man, this is a good topic right now. Sometimes I don't talk about this with people because they get really
touchy.
It's very touchy. So I'm really careful with that because I don't want to offend anyone, and everyone right now has their own opinions. But that's great that you're talking about this, man. So please give him your
definitely want to mention
opinion on this, man. Yeah,
it is terrifying to a degree because the stuff that I mixed was really good. Not just good, but really good. And even though some of the tracks, like I got hired on the mix, but I also played on some of them because they wanted to integrate some human feel into the actual AI track. Even the guitar solos were good. Like the AI had good vibrato and good bending, and I was like, "You gotta be kidding me!" Yeah,
that's the part that I'm more worried about because the shredding part, the scales, all that, okay. But if they can be melodic and have that emotion part, that's terrifying. Yeah, that's very like
that's the terrifying part. It is scary, and it was like that with the vocals too. Well, the problem is that I can still hear that it's AI. I can hear in the vocals when I'm mixing it that or else you just overusing the auto-tune. But in another year, you won't be able to tell. And there's all these other things that are coming that career-wise, I think people should be aware of, like AI mixers. Like I mix. So I've made pretty decent money mixing songs for people over the years, and I don't think that job will exist coming up. You'll be able to put your tracks into AI and pick the mixer that you like it to sound like. Oh, I think I would like Chris Lord-Alge to mix this.
Oh my gosh.
And
AI. It sounds crazy, but you're right. I mean, you told me this when I was in college and when I was 20, I will laugh at you and I will say you are crazy, man. I mean, I will see that like, I don't know, like in a Terminator movie like, oh, how is like the planet Earth in the year 3000. I'm like, oh yeah, but yeah, if you go to the future, yes, you can do that. But I didn't know that was happening like that quick, you know?
It's what's happening is that it's going to move quicker and quicker every year now, because the power of computing is moving quicker and getting more powerful. And I don't know how far. I tend to believe that probably in projects that we're not privy to know about, that it's already probably hit a level where it's surpassing the human. But you have to think that college degrees, even right now, like, I saw some predictions. I don't think that there'll be an attorney on the planet that will be able to beat AI in another like 3 years. It's going to affect a lot of elements. And I think that's something that people need to realize. I think there'll always be that. It might even make it more important to go see people play live then. So it might make those live shows even more important and more valuable to humans, because and I'm hoping for that too. I really am, because the AI will technically be able to go and it will consume every blues album in the world, and it will be able to play with feel. And that's the scary part, is that we won't be able to tell eventually. And couple that with, it'll copy any likeness, and you won't even be able to tell the likeness. You could bring B.B. King back, and you'll be able to see him play and sing new songs.
Wow.
And
that's kind of cool for me. Maybe some people's gonna see this, gonna hate me big time, but it's a lot of music that I like. Oh, what if Van Halen, did this? Or what about I can do in AI the third Razor X album? Oh man, I will press enter, man. I will be like, boom.
And you will be able to. And at a certain point, you'll be able to say, now show them back in 1988 playing this album, and you won't be able to tell the difference. It'll be us on stage playing that new record. And I don't know what kind of laws are going to be put into place. Obviously, it'll be like sort of like when hip hop started, or rap. And it was the Wild West. People were sampling anything. Hey, let's sample Van Halen. And now we've got, Funky Cold Medina or Wild Thing, whatever that song was, with James crying.
Yeah.
And no one was getting paid. Van Halen wasn't making any money, and it was like that was their song being used.
That's the part that sucks. That's the part that is kind of like the business gets weird and gets in this weird area, which is fascinating in one point, that you can create this new stuff that you're like, wow, that's great, even for movies. And it's because it's not only us, it's like everyone. I think even like psychologists, like I guess some people are right now talking to ChatGPT, like, and they don't have to go to psychologists, because, just like it's involving like a lot of people, and I think that the scary part of the money. That I know money is not everything and all that. But we need to pay the bills. That's something that people need to understand. That
it is a interesting time in history, and like I say, I'm privy enough to be around people that work in the AI field enough, and even some of my family members are involved in the AI, and it's not going away. Let's put it that way.
I like it a lot, man, that you're open to this. I really like it that you're open to this, open to social media. You have Instagram, man. I didn't know that you have Instagram. I was checking, and then when they sent the interview, and I'm like, I hope he has Instagram. And then I follow you, and I start to see your videos. I'm like, heck yeah, man! Finally, I can see Bruce playing this stuff, man. Just put more, please. Upload more. I was just upload all the stuff.
It's taken me a while. I mean, I'm late to the game, like you said earlier. I was there when YouTube started. I had every chance in the world to like take advantage of it, but I didn't understand it yet. I was still from that old model, and I didn't understand that how to monetize videos and how, you can direct traffic, and really,
We didn't know. Like nobody knew that coming, man. Like I didn't know, and I'm in that age of like I was able to like, oh, this is great. And I remember that I put a video playing some video game music, and it got a ton of views.
yeah.
I got, I don't know how many comments. Were a lot of comments. 2 comments of, let's say, 1,000 comments. 2 comments were like haters. I didn't understand what was a hater back then.
Yeah.
It was so bad that I deleted everything. And
Oh, no.
now I'm like, I'm an idiot. Why I did that? You know what I mean? Of course, people are gonna hate you. People are gonna be unhappy.
Yeah.
Behind the computer and talking trash about you.
You're not doing good if somebody doesn't hate you a little bit.
Yeah, that's so far, but
I started to figure out, like, I saw some comments on Eruption, and I saw these comments going like, that ain't that good. This guy's overrated and all this. And I'm like, yeah, you got to just learn not to worry about the internet comments.
that's a good example.
Yeah.
That's a really good example. Yeah, it's just like, just people know. Well, Bruce, I really appreciate, man, the time to talk to us, man. I really, really appreciate it. It's great, man. Now I can tell it's a dream come true to meet you, to be honest. Such a fan, man. Honestly, I cannot believe that I'm talking to you right now when I was going to my Taekwondo lesson, taking the bus, and with my Walkman and repeating the same mixtape, man. I remember that was the full Second Life album. I remember that was that one, and I listened to that, man, so many times. I'm copycat you big time. So sorry you listened to me one day and it's the same. I'm so sorry.
I take it. I'm always flattered.
So sorry, man. I'm so sorry, man. But
Okay.
I'm so sorry, man. I'm not going to say I'm in the limbo, the new style. No, I'm pure you guys, 80s, shred. It's just that with my flavor, I guess, but it's just that, So I really appreciate what you done for music. Really good talk. Hope to meet you in Las Vegas one day, man. I hope to jam with you one day, man. That will be great. Yeah. Thank you for being here, man. So you want to say bye to the Shred Music TV?
Oh yeah. Well, I just want to say thanks and for having me out here, and I sure appreciate it, and I'm always humbled by even the people mentioning the old days and the Racer X albums and all that. I feel good we at least participated and gave the guitar world something that they can, move forward with, and it'll be there for people to enjoy, forever. So, thanks. And